I'm Alexa Benson-Amoranti.
And I'm Michaela Gain.
And this is the Hope Pod Live Newscast.
January 30th marks Fred Korematsu Day. Korematsu was a Japanese-American citizen who challenged the U.S. government when he refused to comply with the forced incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. Roger Williams University hosted a public program honoring Korematsu. Students and community leaders gathered to reflect on Korematsu's fight for civil liberties and how it still resonates today. Jeremy Schapetta, the senior advisor to the governor Daniel McKee, presented a proclamation officially recognizing Fred Korematsu's Day of Civil Liberties and the Constitution. Senator Linda Uji-Fusa spoke on the importance of remembering this time in our history to reflect and not repeat past mistakes.
With what we're seeing with the excessive use of force against immigrants and minority communities by our federal government, it's important to look back in history and see how other people dealt with that and successfully, and to be inspired by their resistance.
The Communities and Civics team will be speaking more about it later in our program. For the full coverage story of the event, stay tuned.
The Bristol Town Council met on January 28th to discuss the possibility of introducing the flock camera surveillance system within the town of Bristol. Bristol Police Chief Kevin Lynch spoke at the council meeting expressing his support of the flock camera system and explaining how the process works to those who attended. Since the horrific shooting at Brown University, December 2025, Bristol police have been in talks with Roger Williams University discussing how the cameras can help create safeguards. The public had many questions about whether this is the right choice for the town, with many of the questions regarding personal safety versus individual liberties. Colonel Michael Winquist of the Cranston Police Department addressed the public's concerns, but reassured that the cameras do not reveal a person's identity when taking the images. It only states the vehicle type and the time of day that the vehicle drives past the camera.
They really are not as intrusive as people have made them out to be. They're no different than the DOT cameras on all of our highways. They're no different than the transponder on your car every time you drive over one of our bridges.
The town council approved the motion for one of the flock cameras to the town, giving it a trial period of 1 year, but with certain guardrails that will be in place with the possibility of the cameras being removed if they are not deemed fit for the town. There is not a given date yet when the cameras will be introduced, but the system will be implemented in the foreseeable future.
And now to say our price for curated news.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah, and these are today's local stories. From establishing ice-free zones in Providence to a 4% rent cap, let's dive into what's happening in Rhode Island. An executive order was signed by Providence Mayor Brett Smiley on January 20th, 2026, stating that all parking lots, public schools, parks, and municipal buildings in the city of Providence are off limits to federal immigration officers. The order was implemented after recent ICE activity at the Rhode Island courthouse twice in the last 3 months. Mayor Smiley said that ICE officers seen on any city-owned property will have the Providence police vacate them from that property. City property will now have red signs posted noting using city property as a federal immigration enforcement engagement site is now prohibited. A fire in Providence on February 1st has displaced 11 people and injured 5. Christy DeRoyce, a spokesperson for the Providence Fire Department, said crews arrived at the scene on Waverly Street just after 5:30 a.m. after reports of a fire were made. Residents jumped out of a third-floor window to escape the fire as it was blocking the hallway. Others were removed from the home by officers. Battalion Chief Robert Crillon said that the water in the fire hydrants were frozen, but fire crews were able to extinguish the fire with water from a tanker on scene. Fire Chief Derek Silva said that the cause of the fire may have been from smoking materials on the second floor, but this still remains under investigation. The Providence City Council is introducing an ordinance that would put a 4% limit on annual rent hikes across the city. The 17-page ordinance expresses that the 4% increase is the maximum rent increase a landlord may impose without filing a petition. There are several new exceptions to the limit. Newly constructed units would not be subject to the rent control for 15 years from the first date of occupancy, and properties that have 3 apartments or fewer would also be exempt. The Rhode Island Coalition of Housing Providers said in a statement that any form of rent control would cause devastating impacts on the housing market and the community at large. Although the policy is well-intentioned, as was said by real estate partner Shannon Weinstein, there could be unforeseen circumstances as the housing market is constantly changing. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley has stated his opposition to the ordinance and says he plans to veto it. This is an ongoing topic, and stay tuned for further updates. For today's curated news, I'm Sarah Price, and back to Alexa and Michaela.
And that's a wrap on local headlines for this week. I'm Alexa.
And I'm Michaela, and we'll see you next time with more news from around Rhode Island.